Hey, what's going on? It's Chris Carino, and this is a podcast we call The Voice of the Nets. I'm joined by my longtime radio partner, Tim Capstraw, and of NetsDaily, Lucas Caplan. You can also see Lucas's stuff on Nets Digital and YouTube and all their social media outlets and the website. Looking forward to some of the stuff he's got coming up here with the Nets, and great to have him here with me and the Capper as we go through the holdovers, all the guys who played a part on the Nets team last season and now looking forward to the 24-25 season as we slowly start to creep toward training camp and the preseason and then the regular season getting underway. Front offices have to get creative sometimes, and I think there's so much attention paid to colleges and international scouting and the draft. And when people hear the word scout, they automatically think of the draft. But what's really important at the NBA level is personnel scouting. You know, your ability to go out and find players that are in situations maybe with other teams, sitting at the end of the bench, but you know that given the right opportunity, you see something in them and you can now bring them in at a manageable contract and they can develop into something that can help you down the road. And I think there's no better example than that than Trendon Watford, a guy who, they saw something, the Nets staff saw something in him and saw an ability to sign him. He had been playing with the Portland Trailblazers. In hindsight, after he's playing well, you talk to people from Portland. They talk about how much Chauncey Billups loved Trendon Watford. But maybe guys just find their niche and they get an opportunity. And that has certainly happened with Trendon Watford, not only in coming to the Nets originally, but I think as the season went along, you saw him get more comfortable and find his role. But I do think it goes to when he first made the team, Captain, when he first joined the team. I think when Trendon Watford first came to the Nets last year, it was, well, here's another big, here's another guy that can help them 6'8". They need some depth in the front line. But you saw in the preseason, they were using him as a primary ball handler. So you got a little glimpse into who Trendon Watford was early in the year last year.
Yeah, but that was, when you think Trendon Watford, you can't help but think about his versatility. The ability to be, he was a backup point guard for big portions of the season. So he certainly had the capability of being able to do that at any time. He looked comfortable doing it. He wasn't just the guy that, could handle the ball a little bit. He could initiate offense from the backcourt. He could get it up and get you started. It's one thing to get the ball off the elbow and make a play. It's another thing to, basically bring it up. And yet, I don't see him as a point guard, but he's a guy that can do that and play that pretty well. And he's in versatility offensively. He showed that he can play multiple positions. He's what you would always call the RPO, right? The run pass option. He'd get it in a 5-out and fake the handoff, almost to the point where, it was on the scouting report that this guy ain't handing it off that often. Handing it to other guys, and he would take it in and make finishing plays. Confident guy, versatile, multiple positions. I heard of him when I talked to people out west, scouts out there. They said he's a really good, short roll guy. He not only could pass, he could play a lot of 4, and he's got this little half hook, little pop-a shot thing that goes in. He didn't really show that. He showed almost everything but that. And then you think about him on defense, great versatility there also. He's able to switch out, play multiple positions, and on top of everything we just talked about, was close to 40% from 3. This guy's is an interesting guy, and he's only 23 years old. Good guy.
That's another thing. He's young and former teammate of Cam Johnson at LSU. Brother was a great player at Indiana. So he comes from a basketball background. It's in his blood. It's in his family, and that the floater was money. I mean, his ability to get that shot is what he wants. And we talked about it in the Schroeder episode, where Dennis Schroeder's a point guard who is at a disadvantage because of his size. Here's a guy, if Trendon Watford can develop into a he does play point guard when he's out there sometimes. Like if he can develop into that, his size can be a real weapon for him, Lucas. I mean, his ability to maybe show some of those other things, the size on both ends of the floor comes in handy for him.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing I like about him is that his older brother, Trendon Watford, likes, without fail, every one of my tweets about Trendon. A friend of mine, pretty much, and Trendon is almost 40% from three last year, and it's like you want him to take more. If you're using him as a starting, or not a starting, but if you're using him as like a ball handler, it's like, hey, you got to shoot the three, and you're shooting it well enough where we don't want you to hesitate from there. He's clearly like specially talented in a way that a lot of end of bench guys are not, as in, towards the end of the bench on Portland. 6'8" guy that can shoot, can get to the floater, can kind of wiggle his way into the paint. For Trendon, I want to see him lean into that passing ability more, even to not, rely on the floater, because he has these highlight passes that are, even more impressive for a guy his size, but sometimes can veer away from that. You want him to lean into his strengths more. It's like, dude, you could be a guy, a jumbo-sized guard who shoots really well from three and makes a lot of passes. So for him, it's about getting the minutes, leaning into his strengths, and cutting out, I don't want to say the fat on his game, but limiting turnovers, limiting fouls. Those things are going to keep you off the court. So he is a lot of end of bench guys or deep rotation guys, you kind of know what you're going to get. It might not be much. Trendon's the opposite. He has real high level skills, but he also has these things that hold him back. So that is, if you're talking about guys you look forward to watching and analyzing, that's a perfect recipe right there.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because sometimes guys they do certain things on the floor, so it's going to lead to turnovers, or you live with some stuff that, because you don't want to take away their creativity, you don't want to take away their aggressiveness. But I think sometimes with Trendon Watford, it wasn't so much of mistakes of aggression or trying to make a play. It just would be lack of concentration, sloppiness. And you're right. That's something that's easy to, life lesson. Those are the kind of things that are easy to clean up. So do it.
You don't want to look up in the second quarter and it's 4 minutes after he checks in and he's pretty much checking in with 2 turnovers. Because you're probably going to get 1 or 2 real turnovers, right? Where there are mistakes of aggression, but all of a sudden you have 3 or 4 turnovers and, half of them are kind of easily correctable. Trendon, this is why you sign a young guy, and this is why you give him more opportunity. So it's not any sort of personal fault, but you definitely just want him to keep doing the things he's good at. And then all of a sudden you have a really unique player that versatile, big, long, can be used in any number of ways. He can come off a screen or he can set a screen and roll. And these are the types of guys that if the coaches can trust them, then the coaches will love using them in a variety of ways. I'm sure Cabra can speak to that.
Well, yeah, well, I'll tell you, and I'm glad you brought up the turnovers, because I don't think anything gets coaches more riled up than that. Turning the basketball over, that'll make you crazy. So he's got to clean that up. And very astute point too. You got to play defense without fouling. I think just as a young team, the Nets will help themselves significantly with their ability to play the game and not not be able to play defense with your feet, not play hard, play aggressive, be physical, but don't put the other team in the bonus too early. That's for sure.
Can Trendon Watford be your like a starting primary ball handler, or do you think he's going to be that niche kind of player coming off the bench?
I think he can find a happy medium. I don't think it has to be one or the other. Like, for example, if he's playing next to Cam Thomas, LSU teammate, there are possessions he can operate and run. And then there are possessions when he can set a screen and play off the ball. Ideally with Trendon Watford, you find this happy medium where you're maintaining aggression, but you don't need to be the guy to do it. So I think he may have those primary skills. He may have some off-ball skills, but you don't want to pigeonhole him. At the same time, it's on him not to get pigeonholed with all of the things we're talking about, and again, minutes, you find the balance, you find where you can attack, you find a matchup you like, you get used to making those not just split-second decisions, but decision-making from a larger perspective, like, when I come into the game, I want to get this done. When I'm playing next to this guy, I want to get this done. And that is a feel thing sort of at the, at the general level.
We're talking about him and we should be, he played, he didn't count on necessarily being a backup point guard. That's not why he was necessarily there. Let's not forget that he could be a very good wing 3-4, and play just on the wing and just have skills. Just play. We talk about that. What do we always say about wing players? Can they defend? I think he's a average defender, good, strong. And can you shoot? He can do both of those things. Let's not forget that we're talking about all the things that were the bonus things that got him on the floor. But let's not forget that he could, also be just a nice, maybe a really good wing player in the NBA.
Yeah, this is a guy we're all talking about, maybe focusing on what he could do better, but it's all coming from a place I think we can agree of, like, we want more from this guy because we see that he has it. And, just to kind of not end, but, throw a positive note in here, it's because he has it and because he clearly has this talent. That's why you want more from him. But we wouldn't be talking about him like this if we didn't think there was a legit future for him to be a positive NBA player. I mean, I think that's for sure.
Yeah, and you mentioned he can be that kind of wing guy, or you can put him in. He's one of those guys that you don't want to say, we don't know what position he is. Because so many times we see guys that people, they'll bounce around a couple of teams or they won't get drafted and they go, we don't really know what position he is. Well, look at all the things he can do and don't worry about pigeonholing him into a position. The thing that makes him so valuable, though, because there's a lot of guys that are 6'8", 6'9", that can shoot and defend pretty good and play the wing. But what's going to separate you? And I think what separates him is that ability to be a primary ball handler and to be a passer and to be, have that floater game. And like, those are the things that now you become a guy that now we're a matchup nightmare on the floor when he's there because, and you pointed out earlier too about, Cap, we're talking about in Portland where he had that ability to play kind of around the rim. If you're trying to match up with a smaller point guard with him, he could have that ability to maybe take him down on the block and use that half hook, so that's the thing. Like, if he can play that position, that might be the thing that separates him as a player, as opposed to just another 6'8", 6'9" guy that can shoot and defend. Is he good enough to be an NBA level guy at that level? That's a question. But when you throw in his ability to handle the ball, the floater game, be a matchup nightmare, that's the thing that I think makes Trendon Watford the intriguing player that he is.
And it has a sort of compounding effect where then you can play him in different lineup configurations, which makes everybody else better. Okay, we have a couple non-shooters or we have a couple big guys. Let's slide them over to the one, and now we're a big team and we can get on the glass. Okay, we have these guards we really want to play. They can shoot. Okay, we can slide him kind of down here, match him up with the forward. He can set some screens. And so you stack those guys on a team, no matter who he's playing for, and it adds value beyond just the literal things he can do on a basketball court. It makes his teammates better just by existing. And so this is, I think, this is why we don't want to pigeonhole him. You know, that's a big part of his appeal.
Well, Lucas Caplan, hopefully Christian Watford, his brother, will continue to like your tweets or your posts on X. He was the typical example, Trendon was, of the guy that you would go to see. I remember my son used to play, you know, rec ball or whatever, and you'd always have like the younger brother, the little kid on the sideline, who, when there was a timeout, would run onto the floor and hoist up some jumpers, you know, and just always be around on those travel teams. And you'd say, well, that kid may end up being better than all of them. And he was the guy that used to go with his parents on those long rides up from Birmingham, Alabama, up to Indiana to go see his brother. There's pictures of Trendon with the red and white striped pants that the Indiana Hoosier players used to wear. Tom Crean used to love having him around. His brother, you know, tried to give it a go in the NBA. Didn't really work out for Christian, but certainly Trendon was the kid who was always hanging on. But now he has a real opportunity, I think, this year to show what he can be with a team that is just, you know, looking for players who can step up for the Nets this season, and what will be a real wild card. A real wild card for the Nets and a wild card of a season, I think, Trendon Watford. We appreciate you tuning in here to the Voice of the Nets. My longtime radio partner, Tim Capstraw, the Capper, and of Nets Daily and Nets Digital is Lucas Caplan. I'm Chris Carino. Thank you so much for checking us out on the Voice of the Nets.